Maya Ellison first noticed the black SUV on the coldest night of the year. It sat across the street from her apartment building, half buried under falling snow, its headlights off, its windows tinted so dark they looked like pieces of midnight glass. The street lamp above it flickered in the storm, throwing silver light across the hood. Every other car on the block had a layer of snow softening its shape, but not that one. Someone had been sitting inside long enough for the engine heat to melt the flakes the second they touched the metal. Maya stood barefoot in her apartment window, one hand holding the curtain, the other wrapped around a mug of tea she had forgotten to drink. For 3 nights, the SUV had been there. Always at 9:17. Always in the same spot. Always facing her window. At first, she told herself it belonged to a neighbor. Boston winters made people strange. Maybe someone was waiting for a friend. Maybe someone worked night shifts. Maybe someone was sleeping in their car. But on the 4th night, when Maya turned off her living room lamp, the SUV's driver's side window lowered by 2 inches. Just enough for her to see the outline of a man. Not clearly, not fully. Only the sharp edge of a jaw, a white shirt collar beneath a black coat, one hand resting on the steering wheel, still and patient, and eyes that looked up through the snow as if he had known exactly when she would appear. Maya's breath caught. She pulled the curtain shut so fast the rings scraped against the metal rod. For a moment, her apartment felt too quiet. The radiator hissed in the corner. Snow tapped lightly against the glass. Somewhere in the unit above her, a child laughed at a television show. Normal sounds, safe sounds, but Maya did not feel safe. She stepped away from the window, heart beating too hard, and reached for her phone. Her thumb hovered over 911. Then she stopped. What would she say? A man is sitting in a car outside my building? He looked at me? He has been there every night? It sounded paranoid, even inside her own head. She turned the phone face down on the counter. "You're tired," she whispered to herself. She had been tired for months, since her father's funeral, since the police told her Marcus Ellison died in a car accident on an icy road outside the city, even though her father had never taken that road, never driven that fast, never gone anywhere without calling her first. A car accident. That was what they called it. Maya called it the beginning of a silence she could not explain. Her father had been a defense attorney. Not famous, but respected. Calm. Careful. The kind of man who always wore polished shoes. Always kept his files organized. Always looked both ways twice before crossing a street. He did not make reckless choices. And yet, 3 months ago, his car had been found wrapped around a tree, burned almost beyond recognition. The police said the fire started after impact. Maya stopped asking questions after Detective Rowe told her grief could make ordinary things look suspicious. Now she taught 2nd grade by day, graded spelling tests at night, paid bills, watered the plant her father had given her, and pretended she did not feel like someone had cut a hole through the center of her life. The SUV outside did not feel ordinary. It felt like the first answer, or the next danger. Maya locked the door. Then the chain. Then the deadbolt. Then she pushed a chair beneath the handle even though she knew it would not stop anyone who truly wanted in. At 11:42, the power went out. The whole apartment dropped into darkness. Maya froze beside the kitchen sink. For 1 second, she thought the storm had taken the grid. It happened sometimes during Boston blizzards. Old buildings. Frozen lines. Too much wind. Then she looked across the street. Every window in every building still glowed warm and yellow. Only hers was dark. A sound came from the hallway. Not footsteps. A soft, deliberate scrape near her door. Metal against metal. Maya's blood went cold. The mug slipped from her hand and shattered against the floor. The scraping stopped. Then came the slow turn of the doorknob. Maya backed away, one hand over her mouth, the broken ceramic crunching under her bare feet. Her phone was on the counter 10 feet away. Too far. The bedroom window led to a fire escape, but it was frozen over, and she was on the 5th floor. The chain on the door trembled. Someone outside pushed once. The chair jerked against the floor. Maya grabbed the only weapon she could reach. A kitchen knife. The second push came harder. Wood cracked. The third came like a gunshot. The door slammed open. 2 men in black masks stepped into her apartment. Maya screamed and swung the knife blindly. One of them caught her wrist with gloved fingers and twisted until pain shot up her arm. The knife hit the floor. The other man moved behind her, clamping a hand over her mouth. Quiet, he hissed. We only need the files. Files. The word cut through the terror. Maya thrashed, trying to bite his hand, trying to scream again, but the man holding her wrist shoved her against the wall hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Where did your father hide them? Her father. Maya's eyes filled with shock. Before she could answer, the hallway outside went black too. Not a power failure. A deliberate darkness. The men froze. For the first time, she heard fear in one of their breaths. Then, from the open doorway, a voice spoke calmly. Take your hands off her. 3 men stood in the hall. The man in front wore a black overcoat dusted with snow, his dark hair slick from the storm. His expression so controlled it was almost inhuman. He was not tall in an obvious way. Not loud. Not frantic. But the room changed when he entered it. The masked men reacted to him as if death itself had walked through the door. Vale, one of them whispered. Maya had heard that name before. Everyone in Boston had heard that name. Adrian Vale. The man newspapers called a businessman and police called untouchable. The man whose restaurants were always full, whose hotels never had vacancies, whose enemies disappeared into rumors. The man mothers warned their sons never to owe money to. The man her father had once refused to talk about at dinner. The most feared mafia boss in the city. And he was standing in Maya's broken doorway, looking at the hand over her mouth. Not at the gun one masked man was raising. Not at the knife on the floor. At the hand touching her. His expression did not change. But something colder than anger entered his eyes. I said. Adrian Vale repeated softly, take your hands off her. The masked man shoved Maya forward and drew his weapon. Adrian moved before Maya could blink. A silenced shot snapped through the apartment. The light fixture above the kitchen exploded. Glass rained down. Maya screamed as Adrian grabbed her by the waist and pulled her behind him, turning his own body between her and the bullet. His men surged into the room. The fight lasted less than 10 seconds. A body hit the wall. Another crashed through Maya's coffee table. A gun skidded across the floor and stopped beside her father's old armchair. When silence returned, Maya was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Adrian still had one hand around her waist. His palm was warm through the fabric of her sweater. Firm. Possessive. Like he had already decided, the world did not get to touch her, unless he allowed it. Maya shoved him away. Don't touch me. His hand dropped immediately. Not because he was afraid, because he chose to let go. His eyes lowered to her bare feet, where blood had begun to bloom from a cut made by the broken mug. You're bleeding. You broke into my apartment. They broke in. I arrived. You were outside. Yes. Why? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Snow blew through the broken door behind him. His men stood like shadows near the hallway, silent and armed. Finally he said, because your father made enemies who are no longer willing to wait. Maya's throat tightened. My father is dead. Adrian's gaze did not move. No, he said quietly. Your father was murdered. The words entered the room like a bullet. Maya stared at him. For 3 months, she had begged someone to say it. Begged the police to admit it. Begged the world to stop pretending Marcus Ellison had simply lost control of his car on a road he never used. But hearing it from Adrian Vale did not bring relief. It brought terror. How do you know that? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Because I know who ordered it. Maya's knees weakened. The room tilted. Adrian reached for her, stopped himself halfway. Then curled his hand into a fist at his side, as if touching her without permission cost him something. Pack a bag, he said. Maya let out a humorless laugh, broken and breathless. You're insane. You cannot stay here. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice. That snapped something inside her. She stepped toward him despite the blood on her foot, despite the bodies in her apartment, despite the gun still smoking in one of his men's hands. I always have a choice. For the first time, something flickered in Adrian's face. Not amusement. Not softness. Recognition. As if her defiance had reminded him of someone. You have 5 minutes, he said. Maya slapped him. The sound cracked through the ruined apartment. His men went completely still. One of them reached for his weapon. Adrian raised one hand without looking away from Maya, and the man stopped instantly. Maya's palm stung. Her breath came fast. Fear and rage and grief collided inside her chest until she could barely speak. I said I'm not going with you. Adrian turned his face back to center slowly. A red mark shadowed his cheek where she had hit him. He did not look angry. That frightened her more. If you stay, he said, voice low. They will come back. Not 2 men next time. 10. 20. They will not ask questions before they hurt you. They will not care that you teach children to spell, or that you buy sunflowers every Thursday because they were your mother's favorite. They will not care that you sleep with the hall light on, since your father died. They will tear your life apart looking for something you don't even know you have. Maya went cold. How do you know all that? Adrian did not answer. Instead, he glanced at the shattered door, the broken furniture, the blood on the floor. 4 minutes. Maya hated him. She hated his calm, his control, his certainty, and she hated that he was right. 10 minutes later, she was in the back of his black SUV with a wool coat around her shoulders, a bandage wrapped around her foot, and Boston disappearing behind the snow-streaked windows. Adrian sat beside her, not touching her, his gaze fixed ahead. Maya kept as much distance between them as the seat allowed. Where are you taking me? Somewhere protected. Am I a guest or a prisoner? His eyes shifted to her. That depends on whether you try to run. She laughed softly, bitterly. That sounds like something a kidnapper would say. No, Adrian said. A kidnapper would lie. The SUV moved through the city, like the storm belonged to it. 2 more black vehicles followed behind. Maya watched their headlights through the snow, her hands gripping the coat tightly. Were you watching me every night? Yes. No shame? No excuse? No. Why? To make sure no one reached you before I did. Maya turned toward him. That is not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. The city shifted from narrow residential streets to glass towers and old stone buildings. The SUV eventually pulled beneath a private entrance behind a luxury hotel overlooking the harbor. Men in black coats stepped aside before the vehicle stopped, their heads lowering slightly as Adrian opened his door. No one spoke to him unless he looked at them first. Maya noticed that. Power did not follow Adrian loudly. It moved around him quietly, like people had learned silence was safer. He led her through a private elevator with brass walls and no visible buttons. The elevator rose so high, Maya's ears popped. When the doors opened, she stepped into a penthouse that looked nothing like a criminal hideout and everything like a museum designed by someone who did not believe in warmth. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced the snow-covered city. Black marble floors reflected low amber lights. A fireplace burned without sound. Everything was expensive, immaculate, controlled, lonely. That was the word that came to her before she could stop it. Lonely. A woman in her 50s with silver hair and kind eyes approached with a medical kit. This is Helena, Adrian said. She'll dress your foot. I can do it myself. I'm sure you can. Then why is she here? Because I trust her. Maya looked at Helena. Should I? Helena's gaze softened. With your foot, yes. With him, that depends on what he has done today. Adrian's mouth did not move, but Maya almost thought he might have smiled if he were another man. Almost. Helena guided Maya to a chair near the fire. As she cleaned the cut, Maya hissed in pain. Adrian turned sharply from the window. I'm fine, Maya snapped. His eyes held on her face too long. Then he looked away. That night, Maya was given a guest room larger than her entire apartment. The sheets smelled faintly of cedar. The windows would not open. The door did not lock from the inside. She found that out immediately. At midnight, she stepped into the hall with her coat over her pajamas, determined to leave. A man stood outside her door. Broad shoulders, earpiece, gun beneath his jacket. Maya stared at him. Move. I can't do that, Miss Ellison. Can't or won't. He looked genuinely apologetic. Both. Maya crossed her arms. Does Adrian keep all his guests guarded like criminals? Only the ones people are trying to kill. She walked past him anyway. He stepped into her path. Maya inhaled slowly, then turned around, went back into the bedroom, picked up the ceramic lamp from the nightstand, and threw it at the security camera in the corner. The camera shattered. 3 seconds later, Adrian opened the door. He wore no coat now, only a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. A gun rested in his hand, lowered but ready. His eyes scanned her first. Face. Hands. Feet. Blood. Fear. Only then did he look at the broken camera. Maya lifted her chin. I don't like being watched. I noticed. Then stop. No. She stepped closer. You don't own me. His eyes darkened. No, he said. But someone is hunting you. Until I know who has your father's files, where they are, and how much you know, I am the only thing standing between you and a grave. I don't have any files. I believe you. Then let me go. I don't trust the world enough to do that. The quiet honesty of it disarmed her. For 1 second, the anger faded, and all Maya saw was the exhaustion beneath his control. Not weakness, never weakness, but something heavy, something long carried. "Why do you care?" she whispered. Adrian's jaw tensed. He looked at her mouth, then her eyes, then past her, as if whatever answer lived inside him was too dangerous to release. "I made your father a promise. My father hated men like you." "Yes," Adrian said. "He did. Then why would he trust you?" "Because the night he needed a monster, I was the one who answered." Maya said nothing. Adrian stepped back. "Sleep," he said. "Tomorrow will be worse." Then he left her standing in the dim bedroom, with her heart beating harder than she wanted it to. Tomorrow was worse. By morning, her apartment fire was on the news. Fire. Not break-in. Not attempted murder. Not masked men looking for files. A gas leak, according to officials. Maya stood in Adrian's living room wearing borrowed clothes, watching footage of firefighters carrying blackened furniture out of the building she had lived in for 4 years. Her classroom photos were gone. Her books. Her father's old armchair. The blue mug her mother bought in Cape Cod. Everything. The news anchor said no one had been hurt. Maya laughed once, hollowly. "I was almost murdered." Adrian stood behind her, on the phone with someone, speaking in clipped Italian. When he saw her face, he ended the call mid-sentence. "They erased it," she said. "Yes." "How?" "Money, influence, fear." Her eyes burned. "That was my home." "I know." "No, you don't." His gaze sharpened, but he did not interrupt. "You live above the city in a glass castle with men guarding every door. You don't know what it means to have one place in the world that's yours, and then watch strangers turn it into a lie on television." Something passed through his expression then. A shadow. "I know exactly what it means to watch a home burn," he said quietly. Maya's anger faltered. Before she could ask, a man entered the room carrying a sealed evidence bag. Inside was a half-melted metal box. "We found it behind the radiator in her bedroom," he said. Maya stepped forward. "I've never seen that before." Adrian took the bag, studied the box, then looked at her. "Your father did." The box had no keyhole. No combination. Only a smooth surface, marked by a small indentation, shaped like a child's handprint. Maya's stomach twisted. She knew that shape. When she was 6 years old, her father had pressed her hand into wet clay and told her some things were safer when only love could open them. She had thought he was making a memory keepsake, a father being sentimental after her mother's death. Adrian placed the box on the table. "Put your hand on it." Maya stared at him. "What is inside?" "The reason your father died." Her hand trembled as she placed it over the indentation. The metal clicked. The box opened. Inside was a small flash drive, an old photograph, and a folded letter addressed in her father's handwriting. Maya picked up the photograph first. Her father stood beside a much younger Adrian Vale, outside what looked like a courthouse. Adrian could not have been more than 25. There was blood on his collar. Her father looked grim. Between them stood a little girl with dark hair. Maya. She did not remember the picture being taken. She unfolded the letter. "Maya, if you are reading this, then I failed to keep the truth buried. I am sorry. I wanted you to have a life untouched by the men I once defended and the monsters I once believed I could control. Adrian Vale is dangerous. Never forget that. But he is also the reason you survived once before. Trust him only as far as you must. But if the Calder family comes for you, run to him. Not the police. Not my colleagues. Him." Maya's vision blurred. "The Calder family?" she whispered. Adrian's face hardened. "Vincent Calder. Old Boston blood. He built his empire before I built mine. He believes your father stole something from him." "What?" Adrian nodded toward the flash drive. The names of judges, politicians, officers, and families bought by Calder over 20 years, enough to collapse his empire. Maya looked down at the drive as if it were a live grenade. "Why would my father have this?" "Because he helped create it." Her head snapped up. "No." Adrian's silence was worse than denial. "My father was a good man. He became one." "No. Don't do that. Don't stand there and rewrite him. Because you know secrets I don't." Adrian stepped closer. "Your father spent years defending men like Calder. He knew where bodies were buried because he helped keep them buried." Maya slapped the letter onto the table. "Stop." He tried to leave. "Stop." Calder wouldn't let him. I said stop. Her voice broke on the last word. Adrian did stop. The entire room went silent. Maya's hands shook. The man she had grieved, the man she had defended to detectives, the man she had built into her last safe memory, suddenly stood in front of her, in pieces. A father, aliar, a coward, a protector, all at once. She turned away before Adrian could see her cry. But of course he saw. He seemed to see everything. I need air, she said. You can use the terrace. I need air that doesn't belong to you. His expression closed. No. Maya laughed bitterly through tears. There it is. Maya. The sound of her name in his voice made her look back. He had never said it like that before. Not as an order. As a warning to himself. I cannot let you walk into open streets. Then come with me. His eyes narrowed. You want me to escort you? I want you to stop pretending this is protection when it feels like a cage. Something dangerous moved between them. He could have refused. He should have refused. Instead, 30 minutes later, Maya walked beside Adrian Vale through the Boston Public Garden under a sky the color of steel, with 6 armed men spread invisibly around them. Snow covered the trees. The pond was frozen. The city looked almost innocent in daylight. Almost. People recognized Adrian. Maya saw it in the way conversations died when he passed. The way men looked away. The way a woman grabbed her husband's arm and crossed to the other side of the path. No one approached him. No one smiled. Maya walked faster, angry at the way his presence bent the world. Does it bother you? She asked. What? That everyone is afraid of you. No. Liar. That made him glance at her. Maya's cheeks were pink from the cold. Her hair was tucked beneath a knit hat Helena had insisted she wear. She looked nothing like the women. Adrian was usually photographed near at charity events and courthouse steps. She wore no diamonds, no calculation, no hunger for his name. She looked at him like she wanted answers more than safety. That was dangerous. He had known beautiful women, powerful women, women trained to use silence as a weapon. Maya used silence like a wound. Fear keeps people alive, he said. Does it keep you alive? Yes. Does it make you happy? His eyes held hers. No. The answer was too honest. Maya looked away first. They stopped near a frozen fountain. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Maya said, My father's letters said you're the reason I survived once before. Adrian's face became unreadable. What happened? A gust of wind moved snow across the path. You were 14, he said. Calder's men came to your house looking for Marcus. Your father had already started collecting evidence against them. He thought he could bargain. He was wrong. And Calder's men. Calder's men came to your house. Looking for Marcus. Calder's men came to your house. Maya's breath shortened. I don't remember that. You weren't supposed to. What does that mean? They drugged you. Your father got you out through a back door, but one of them caught you in the alley. I was there for Calder business. I saw him grab you. Maya stared at him. Adrian's voice lowered. I broke his arm, then I broke his neck. The image should have repulsed her. It did, but beneath the horror, something else moved. A younger version of herself. Helpless in an alley. Saved by a man she had been told to fear. Why? She whispered. Adrian looked toward the frozen fountain. Because you were a child. That's all? His jaw flexed. No. Maya waited. He did not continue. Before she could push, one of Adrian's men appeared at the edge of the path, face tense. Adrian saw him and turned immediately. What? The man spoke quietly, but Maya heard enough. Calder knows she's outside. Adrian's hand closed around Maya's wrist. Not painfully. Urgently. We're leaving. Maya barely had time to react before a black van turned onto the path beyond the gate. Too fast. Too direct. Adrian pulled her behind him as the first gunshot cracked across the winter air. People screamed. Birds exploded from snow-covered branches. Adrian wrapped one arm around Maya and drove her behind the fountain as bullets shattered ice and stone around them. His body covered hers completely, his coat shielding her face from flying fragments. For one suspended second, Maya felt only him. His heartbeat against her back, his breath at her ear, his voice, low and absolute. Stay down. Then the world became violence. Adrian's men returned fire. Cars screeched. Glass broke. Snow kicked up in white bursts around the path. Maya pressed her hands over her ears, shaking, but Adrian never flinched. He fired with terrifying calm, each movement controlled, efficient, precise. Not wild, not panicked. This was the man Boston feared, and he was standing between her and death as if he had been born for that single purpose. When the shooting stopped, Adrian turned to her. His eyes scanned her face. "Are you hit?" "No." "Are you sure?" I said no. His hand rose toward her cheek, where a small cut had opened from flying ice. He stopped before touching her. Again, that almost touch unsettled her more than the gunfire. "Adrian," she whispered. He looked at her like hearing his name from her mouth had done something physical to him. Then his gaze shifted to the blood on her cheek. His expression emptied. Not calmed. Emptied. One of Calder's shooters was dragged from the van, wounded but alive. Adrian walked toward him while Maya remained behind the fountain, unable to move. The man spat blood onto the snow. Adrian crouched in front of him. "Who gave the order?" The man laughed weakly. "Calder says she belongs to him." Adrian's face did not change, but the air around him did. Maya felt it from 20 feet away. The temperature seemed to drop. Adrian leaned closer and spoke so softly she could not hear the words. Whatever he said made the wounded man stop laughing. By the time Adrian stood, the man was trembling. That night, Maya did not try to leave the penthouse. She sat near the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the city lights through the glass. Adrian entered after midnight. There was blood on his cuff. Not his. Maya knew that without asking. "You killed him," she said. Adrian stopped behind the sofa. "No." She turned, surprised. "Why not?" "Because I wanted to." That answer sank into her slowly. "You wanted to kill him because he shot at me." "Yes." "But you didn't." "No." "Why?" His eyes met hers. "Because you were watching." Maya had no defense against the quiet admission. He moved to the bar and poured a drink but did not lift it to his mouth. "Calder sent a message," he said. "He wants the flash drive by tomorrow night. In exchange, he will let you leave Boston. Do you believe him?" "No." "Then why tell me?" "Because he also sent proof he has someone you care about." Maya stood. Adrian placed a phone on the table. The screen showed a photograph of her classroom aide, Nora, bound to a chair in a dark room. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. "No." She was taken after school. Maya's eyes filled with horror. "She has nothing to do with this. That's why he took her. We have to give him the drive." "No." "Adrian, no." Her fear exploded into rage. "You don't get to decide that. If I give him the drive, everyone named in it goes free. Judges. Officers. Men who will bury this forever. Your father died to keep it from him. Nora will die because of it." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I'm going to get her back." "How?" "By doing what I do." Maya stepped toward him. "And what is that? Terrify people? Break bones? Kill whoever is in the way? If necessary. She's not a chess piece in your war." "No," Adrian said, voice hardening. "And neither are you." For a moment, they stood too close. Maya could see the tension in his throat, the restraint in his hands, the violence he kept leashed because she was in front of him. "You scare me," she whispered. His expression flickered. "Good." "No," she said, "not good. Because sometimes I think you're the safest place in the world and that scares me more." Adrian's breathing changed. He looked at her with a hunger that was not gentle, but not cruel either. Something starved. Something furious at itself for wanting. "Maya." The way he said it felt like a warning. She should have stepped back. She didn't. His hand lifted again, slow this time, giving her every chance to move. His fingers hovered near her cheek, near the small cut from the fountain. Then the phone on the table rang. Both of them froze. The screen showed an unknown number. Adrian answered. A man's voice filled the room, smooth and old and vicious. "Miss Ellison, I hope Adrian is treating you well." Maya's stomach turned. Adrian went still. "Calder," he said. "Put her on." "No." Maya reached for the phone. Adrian caught her wrist. Their eyes locked. "Put me on," she said. "No." Adrian. Something in him gave way. He placed the phone on speaker. Maya swallowed. "Where is Nora?" "Alive," Vincent Calder said. "For now. You sound like your mother." Maya's blood froze. "My mother died when I was 6. She died because Marcus Ellison had a conscience too late." Adrian's face changed. A tiny shift. But Maya saw it. "What does that mean?" she asked. Calder chuckled. "He never told you." "Of course." Marcus was always better at hiding sins than confessing them. Ask Adrian what happened in the house by the harbor. Ask him why your mother really died. Ask him why he has watched you all these years like a man begging a ghost for forgiveness. The line went dead. Silence filled the penthouse. Maya slowly turned to Adrian. What house by the harbor? His face looked carved from stone. Maya, what happened to my mother? Adrian said nothing. And in that silence, Maya felt something inside her crack. You know. He closed his eyes briefly. You know how she died? Yes. Maya backed away from him. The room blurred. You told me my father was murdered. You told me Calder wanted the files. You told me you saved me when I was 14. But you left that out? It was not my truth to give. That is cowardice dressed up like honor. His eyes opened. The words hit him. She saw it. Good. She wanted them to hurt. My mother, Maya said, voice shaking. Tell me. Adrian looked toward the windows, toward the storm pressing against the glass. When you were 6, your father represented Calder in a federal case. Your mother found out he was helping them bury evidence. She threatened to go to the FBI. Calder sent men to your house by the harbor to scare her. It went wrong. Maya could barely breathe. Went wrong? They set the fire before they knew you were inside. Her hand gripped the back of the sofa. I was inside? Adrian turned back to her. And for the first time, his control looked like pain. Yes. How do you know? Because I was there. The room disappeared. There was only his voice. I was 18. Calder used me as muscle before I had power of my own. I was outside when the fire started. I heard you crying upstairs. Maya shook her head. No. I went in. No. I carried you out through the kitchen door. No, she whispered again, because if it was true, then every story she had been told about her life was incomplete. Her mother's death, her father's grief. The nightmares she thought were just childhood memories distorted by loss. Adrian's voice roughened. Your mother was already gone. Maya covered her mouth. I'm sorry. She looked at him through tears. Did you know they were going to kill her? No. Did you work for them? Yes. The honesty struck harder than a lie. Maya walked to the door. Adrian did not stop her. His guard outside stepped aside when Adrian gave one silent nod. Maya spent the night in another bedroom, curled on the floor instead of the bed, crying for a mother she had lost twice. Once to death. Once to truth. At dawn, Helena found her. The older woman lowered herself beside Maya and said nothing for a long time. Finally, Maya whispered, How do you work for him? Helena looked toward the covered window. Because once, when my son owed money to men who would have killed him slowly, Adrian paid the debt and asked for nothing. That doesn't erase what he's done. No. Then why are you telling me? Because people like Adrian are rarely innocent. But sometimes they are not only guilty. Maya closed her eyes. That was the problem. She wanted Adrian to be a monster. A monster would be easy to hate. But monsters did not stop themselves from touching your cheek. Monsters did not let you slap them in front of their men. Monsters did not carry girls from burning houses and spend years watching over them from the dark. Unless guilt looked a lot like devotion. By noon, Maya made a decision. She found Adrian in his office, surrounded by men, maps, phones, and weapons. Everyone stopped speaking when she entered. Adrian stood. His eyes moved over her face, searching for damage he had no right to ask about. I want to help get Nora back, Maya said. No. Don't start. You are not going near Calder. You need the drive. He wants me. Use both. Adrian's expression darkened. Absolutely not. Then he kills Nora. I have men moving. And if they fail, they won't. Because Adrian Vale never fails? His silence answered too much. Maya stepped closer, aware of every man in the room watching and pretending not to. You don't get to keep me in glass and call it protection. Nora is in danger because of me. My father's choices. Your world. Calder's greed. I won't sit upstairs while everyone bleeds around me. Adrian's voice lowered. You think bravery and survival are the same thing. No, I think fear and control aren't love. The room went deathly quiet. Adrian's men looked anywhere but at him. Maya regretted the word the second it left her mouth. Love. It hung between them like a lit match. Adrian's eyes did not soften. They burned colder. You don't know what my love would look like, he said quietly. Maya held his gaze. I think that's what scares you. For one suspended moment, she thought he might cross the room and kiss her. Or drag her out. Or confess something. that would ruin them both. Instead, he looked at his men. Leave. They obeyed instantly. When the door closed, Adrian walked toward her slowly. Maya refused to step back. He stopped close enough that she could feel the heat of him through the cold room. If Calder sees you, he will use every fear you have against you. Then teach me not to show fear. He will threaten children, your school, Nora, me. Her pulse jumped at the last word. Adrian saw it. Of course he did. His voice dropped. That is why you cannot come. Because if he learns I would burn this city before letting him touch you, he will build the whole war around you. Maya's throat tightened. That sounds like your problem. It became my problem the night I carried you out of fire. Her eyes stung again, but she did not look away. Did you watch me all these years because you felt guilty? Yes. The answer hurt. Then he continued. At first, Maya's breath caught. Adrian looked at her like the truth was costing him blood. At first, you were Marcus Ellison's daughter. A debt. A promise. A child I failed to protect from the world I helped create. Then you became the woman who bought coffee for the doorman in your building because his wife was sick. The teacher who stayed late so a little boy wouldn't wait alone in the cold. The woman who cried in her kitchen on the day of her father's funeral and still went to work the next morning because 24 children expected her to smile. Maya could not move. His voice roughened, barely. I told myself I was protecting you because of guilt. That was easier. Easier than what? Adrian's gaze dropped to her lips for one dangerous second. Then admitting I looked for you in every window. Maya's heart was no longer steady. He lifted his hand again, and this time, when his fingers brushed the side of her face, she did not stop him. The touch was light, almost reverent, nothing like the violence his name carried. Then he pulled back first. We leave in 1 hour, he said. Maya blinked. Where? To get Nora. The rescue took them beneath the city. Calder was holding Nora in an abandoned subway maintenance tunnel beneath South Boston, somewhere forgotten by maps but remembered by criminals. Adrian brought 12 men. Maya wore a bulletproof vest beneath a black coat and kept a small tracker sewn into her sleeve. You stay behind me, Adrian said as they entered through a rusted service door near the harbor. You've said that 6 times. I'll say it 7. I'm not fragile. No, he said, checking his weapon. That is not the problem. What is? He looked at her in the dim tunnel light. I am. Before she could respond, the first explosion shook the passage. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered. Adrian grabbed Maya and drove her against the wall, shielding her head as gunfire erupted ahead. The tunnel became chaos. Muzzle flashes cut through dust. Men shouted in Italian and English. Maya heard Adrian's voice cut through everything, calm and lethal, giving orders like fear was something he had outgrown. They found Nora tied to a chair near an old control room, bruised but alive. Maya ran to her. Maya? Nora sobbed. I'm sorry. I told them I didn't know anything. It's okay. You're okay. But as Adrian's men moved in, Nora's eyes shifted past Maya. Widened. Maya, behind you. A man stepped from the shadows and grabbed Maya around the throat. Adrian turned. The world slowed. The man pressed a knife beneath Maya's jaw. Drop the guns, he shouted. Or I open her right here. Every weapon in the tunnel froze. Adrian did not move, but Maya saw the change in him. The control cracking. The fear beneath it. Not fear for himself. For her. The man laughed. So it's true. The great Adrian Vale found something he can't replace. Adrian lowered his gun. Let her go. The man pressed the knife harder. Maya felt warmth slide down her neck. Adrian's eyes fixed on the blood. Something in him broke silently. You want money? Adrian asked. No. Calder wants her alive. Then you need leverage. I have leverage. No, Adrian said softly. You have 3 seconds to realize you're already dead. The tunnel lights went out. Maya felt herself pulled sideways. A shot cracked near her ear. Adrian's arm locked around her waist. When the lights flickered back, the man who had held her was on the ground, and Adrian was standing over him with blood on his hand and murder in his eyes. Maya stared at him. He looked almost unrecognizable, not because of the violence, because his control was gone. He crossed to her and took her face between his hands, no longer stopping himself. Look at me. I'm okay. Look at me. She did. His thumbs brushed her cheeks as his eyes searched hers. You're bleeding. It's small. It was a knife at your throat. I know. His breathing was uneven. The feared Adrian Vale. Calm under bullets. steady under betrayal, looked shaken because of one thin cut beneath her jaw. Maya placed her hand over his. "I'm here." For 1 second, his forehead almost lowered to hers. Then Nora sobbed behind them, and the moment broke. They escaped through the tunnel as Calder's men poured in from the east entrance. Adrian carried Nora when her legs gave out. Maya ran beside him, one hand gripping his coat. At the exit, beneath a storm-dark harbor sky, Calder's final trap waited. Police cars. Not real police. Men with badges bought by Calder. They surrounded the service road, weapons raised, lights flashing red and blue over the water. A helicopter thundered above them, wind whipping Maya's hair across her face. Adrian pushed Maya behind him. One detective stepped forward. "Adrian Vale," he called. "You're under arrest for kidnapping Maya Ellison and Nora Price." Maya went cold. Public scandal. Calder was turning the rescue into a crime. Cameras appeared behind the police line. News vans. Reporters. Somehow, they had been called before the raid even ended. Adrian looked at the cameras, then at Maya. She understood the trap instantly. If he fought, he became the monster on live television. If he surrendered, Calder got Maya. The detective smiled. "Hands where we can see them." Adrian slowly raised his hands. Maya stepped out from behind him. "Maya," he warned. She ignored him. The cameras turned toward her. "My name is Maya Ellison," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I am here by choice. Adrian Vale did not kidnap me. He saved me." The detective's smile faded. Maya reached into her coat and pulled out the flash drive. Adrian's eyes sharpened. "Maya, no." But she had already seen the news vans, the live cameras, the city watching. Her father had hidden the truth in darkness. Calder had survived because everyone whispered. Maya lifted the drive where cameras could see it. "My father was murdered because of what is on this. Vincent Calder owns judges, police officers, and public officials in this city. And tonight, his people kidnapped an elementary school aide to force me into silence." The detective lunged toward her. Adrian moved. He caught the detective's wrist before the man could touch Maya and twisted just enough to make him drop his gun. Not enough to break bone. Enough for every camera to see the badge fall. Chaos erupted. Reporters shouted. Police turned on each other. Adrian's men formed a wall around Maya and Nora. Above the noise, a single gunshot rang from the rooftop across the street. Maya did not hear it until Adrian hit her. He drove her to the ground and covered her with his body. The bullet tore through his shoulder. For a second, she did not understand. Then she felt his blood against her hands. "Adrian?" His face was above hers, pale but controlled. "Stay down." "No, no, no." Another shot struck the concrete inches away. Adrian's men returned fire toward the rooftop. The helicopter swung its light up. Someone screamed that the shooter was down. Maya pressed her hands to Adrian's shoulder, blood pouring between her fingers. "You're hit. I've had worse. Don't you dare make jokes." "I didn't." His mouth tightened with pain. The cameras were still rolling. The city watched Adrian Vale bleed on top of the woman everyone thought he had kidnapped. And Maya watched the coldest man in Boston struggle to stay conscious because he had taken a bullet meant for her. At the hospital, everything became white lights, shouting doctors, and armed men lining the corridors. Luxury hospital or not, Adrian's name turned the building into a fortress. Men in suits guarded every elevator. Police waited outside, but did not dare push in. News helicopters circled above the roof. Calder's empire began collapsing in real time. As files from the flash drive leaked to federal agents, Maya had contacted through one of her father's old law school friends. But Maya did not care about the news. She sat beside Adrian's hospital bed, still wearing his blood on her sleeve. He woke just before dawn. His eyes opened slowly. Maya stood immediately. "Don't move." His gaze found her. "You're safe." She let out a breath that was almost a laugh and almost a sob. "You got shot and the first thing you say is that?" It was the only thing that mattered. Maya looked away because tears had already started. Adrian tried to sit up. Pain flashed across his face. "Stop," she said, pressing a hand gently to his chest. He looked down at her hand, then up at her. The room shifted. Quiet, intimate, dangerous in a different way. "I thought you were going to die," she whispered. "I didn't. You don't get credit for barely surviving." His eyes warmed by a fraction. For Adrian, it was almost a smile. Maya sat beside him. "Calder's people are being arrested. Not all of them. No, but enough. Calder? Gone. Adrian's expression sharpened. What do you mean, gone? He disappeared before federal agents reached his estate. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. That means this is not over. Maya's chest tightened. But before fear could take hold, Adrian's hand covered hers. I will find him. I know. And when I do, no. His gaze opened. Maya held his hand tighter. I don't want you to become worse because of me. His face became unreadable. You think there is worse? I think there is a part of you that wants to burn the whole world so you don't have to feel afraid. Adrian was silent. She leaned closer. And I think you are afraid. His jaw tightened. Maya, you're afraid because you couldn't save my mother. Because you couldn't save my father. Because every time someone gets close to me, you see fire, and blood, and all the things you think you failed to stop. His eyes darkened with something raw. Do not make me sound noble. I'm not. Good. I'm making you sound human. That broke the silence between them more than any confession could have. Adrian looked away, and for the first time, Maya saw the man beneath the myth. Not innocent, not redeemed, not safe, but human. And that was harder to resist than power. He spoke after a long moment. When I was ordered to kill you, I told myself sparing you was enough. Then I kept watching because Calder might return. Then, because Marcus asked me to. Then because your life became the only clean thing I could see from where I stood. Maya's breath trembled. I am not clean, Adrian. I'm angry, I'm grieving. I don't even know who my father really was. You stood in front of cameras while men with guns surrounded you and told the truth with your voice shaking. That's not clean. No, he said. That's brave. She lowered her eyes. His fingers tightened around hers. I don't know how to love gently, he said. Maya looked at him. The words were controlled, but barely. I don't know how to want something without wanting to protect it from everything. I don't know how to hold something precious without fearing my hands will ruin it. And you should be smart enough to walk away from that. Maya's heart ached. I'm smart. I know. That's why I'm still here. His expression changed. Slowly. Almost painfully. Maya leaned closer, close enough to feel his breath. This isn't forgiveness, she whispered. I know. And it isn't surrender. His eyes dropped to her mouth. No. It's a beginning. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Adrian lifted his uninjured hand and touched her cheek with the restraint of a man holding back an entire storm. This time, he did not stop halfway. Maya closed her eyes. His thumb brushed away one tear. The kiss did not happen then. It almost did. But a knock sounded at the door. Adrian's expression went lethal so quickly, Maya almost laughed through the tension. Helena entered, looked between them, and raised one eyebrow. I see the patient is alive enough to ignore medical advice. Maya pulled back, cheeks warm. Adrian looked only mildly annoyed, which for him was practically public affection. The peace lasted 8 hours. At sunset, Calder struck the hospital. Not with guns at first, with alarms. The fire system triggered. Elevators shut down. Security cameras went black. Smoke began filling the lower floors, not from fire but chemical canisters placed through maintenance vents. Adrian was still attached to monitors when his men burst in. They're inside. Maya stood. Adrian ripped the IV from his arm. Don't, she said. He swung his legs over the bed. I told you this wasn't over. You were shot. And Calder made the mistake of coming into a building where you are. The hallway outside was chaos. Nurses pushed patients behind locked doors. Adrian's men moved in formation. Maya refused to leave his side, despite every order he gave her. They reached the service stairwell when the lights failed. Red emergency glow bathed everything in blood-colored shadow. Halfway down, gunfire erupted below. Adrian shoved Maya into an alcove, one arm braced above her head, his body caging hers against the wall. Stay here. No. Maya, if you walk away from me right now, wounded and bleeding, I swear I'll follow you just to spite you. Even in the red dark, she saw the flash of something almost helpless in his eyes. You are impossible. You noticed. Gunfire cracked again. Adrian leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. If I tell you to run, you run. If you fall, I drag you. His mouth parted slightly. Not a smile. Something deeper. Then he pressed a gun into her hand. Only if someone gets past me. Maya looked down at it. I don't know how to use this. You point. You breathe. You survive. Before she could answer, Calder's voice echoed from the stairwell below. How touching. Vincent Calder emerged from the smoke in a charcoal coat, older than Maya expected, elegant in the way venom can be elegant. 2 armed men flanked him. Adrian stepped in front of Maya. Calder smiled. Still hiding behind Vale, Miss Ellison? Maya's fingers tightened around the gun. Adrian's voice was almost soft. You should have left the city. And miss watching you bleed over Marcus Ellison's daughter? Never. Calder's eyes moved to Maya. Your father begged too, you know. Not at first. At first, he believed law mattered. Evidence mattered. Then we showed him how small good men become when their daughters are threatened. Maya felt the words hit, but she did not break. You killed him. Yes. No denial. No disguise. Just pride. Adrian moved slightly, but Calder's men raised their guns. And your mother, Calder continued. That was less elegant. Fire always is. Adrian's whole body went still. Calder saw it and smiled wider. Ah, there he is. The boy who ran into flames and came out thinking one saved child could wash the blood from his hands. Maya saw Adrian's control fraying. Not for himself. For her. She reached forward and touched his back. One small contact. Enough. He breathed once. Calder's eyes narrowed. You really do love her. Adrian said nothing. Maya stepped from behind him. Adrian's hand shot out, but she did not let him pull her back. Yes, she said to Calder, and that's why you've already lost. Calder laughed. Then Maya raised the gun and fired not at Calder, but at the sprinkler pipe above him. Water exploded through the stairwell. For 1 second, everyone flinched. Adrian moved like darkness given a body. He disarmed the first man, drove the second into the railing, and took a bullet across his side without stopping. Maya ducked as Calder lunged for her. He grabbed her coat, but she slammed the gun into his face and stumbled backward. Adrian caught Calder by the throat and drove him against the wall. The old man choked, smiling through blood. Do it, Calder rasped. Show her what you are. Adrian's hand tightened. Maya saw the battle in him. The monster Calder wanted. The man Adrian feared he could never stop being. The protector who would kill for her. The man who wanted to be more. Adrian, Maya said softly. He did not look away from Calder. He killed your mother. I know. He killed your father. I know. He will never stop. Maya stepped closer, water soaking her hair, red emergency light flashing over her face. Then don't let him decide who you become. Adrian's breathing was harsh. For 1 terrible second, she thought he would do it. Then he released Calder and struck him once, hard enough to drop him unconscious but not dead. Adrian stepped back. Federal agents poured into the stairwell moments later, weapons raised, shouting orders. Maya looked at Adrian. He stood in the water and red light, bleeding from 2 wounds, his face pale, his hands shaking faintly. Not from weakness, from restraint. She crossed to him and took his hand. In front of agents, nurses, bodyguards, and the unconscious man who had haunted both their lives, Maya Ellison held Adrian Vale's bloody hand like she was not afraid of what it had done. And Adrian looked at her like she had just pulled him from a fire. 3 weeks later, Boston began telling itself a new story. Vincent Calder's arrest destroyed half the city's old power structure. Judges resigned. Police captains vanished behind federal indictments. Politicians who once smiled beside Calder at charity events denied knowing him as reporters played footage of Maya's statement outside the harbor tunnels. Marcus Ellison's name appeared in headlines too. Some called him corrupt. Some called him a whistleblower. Maya stopped reading after the first week. She would spend years reconciling the father she loved with the man who had hidden so much. Grief did not disappear just because truth arrived. Sometimes truth only gave grief sharper teeth. But she returned to her classroom. That mattered. The first morning back, 24 children rushed her at once, hugging her coat, asking if she had been on TV, if bad guys were real, if her new bodyguards were superheroes. Maya cried in the supply closet during lunch. Then she wiped her face, returned to the classroom, and taught multiplication like the world had not nearly swallowed her whole. Outside the school, 2 black SUVs remained parked at opposite ends of the street. Discreet, but not invisible. Maya saw them. Of course she did. At 4:15, as snow began falling again, she stepped outside and found Adrian leaning against the hood of the SUV beneath a bare winter tree. He looked better. Still pale. Still bandaged beneath his black coat. Still carrying danger like an expensive fabric tailored to his frame. But something in him had changed. Not softened. Settled. The children whispered from the windows behind her. Maya walked toward him with her arms crossed. You're going to terrify the PTA. I already donated to the library fund. Of course you did. And the music program. Adrian. And the roof repair. She stared at him. He looked back calmly. You said the cafeteria leaks. That was not an invitation to buy the building. I didn't buy the building. Did you try? A pause. Maya closed her eyes. Unbelievable. When she opened them, Adrian was closer. He did that sometimes. Moved silently, like the world made room for him before she noticed. I can leave, he said. She studied him. He meant it. That was new too. Before, Adrian protected by deciding. Now he was learning the terror of asking. Maya looked past him at the falling snow, the black SUV, the city that had taken so much from both of them. Then she looked back. No, she said. Walk me home. His eyes held hers. Your new apartment is 2 blocks away. I know. I have men watching it. I know. You hate that. I'm learning to negotiate. That almost smile touched his mouth again. Tiny. Devastating. They walked side by side through the snow, not touching at first. There were still things between them. Blood, history, grief, power, choices that could not be undone. Maya knew love would not make Adrian harmless. It would not turn his world into something bright and clean. But love did not always arrive as safety. Sometimes it arrived as a man who sat outside your window in the snow because the world had teeth. Sometimes it arrived as a monster choosing restraint. Sometimes it arrived as the truth you wished you had never found, and the hand that stayed when you found it. At the entrance to her new building, Maya stopped. Are you coming up? Adrian's eyes darkened slightly. Should I? The question warmed something in her chest. She stepped closer. Snow melted in his hair. A faint scar marked his jaw from the hospital fight. His black coat was buttoned perfectly, but she knew there were bandages beneath it. Proof that even powerful men could bleed. You can, she said. Adrian looked at her like she had offered him something more dangerous than a kingdom. Inside her apartment, the windows looked over a quieter street. Smaller. Warmer. Still half unpacked. On the kitchen counter sat the plant her father had given her, rescued from Helena's care. Beside it was the old photograph from the metal box. Marcus. Young Adrian. And Maya. As a child. Maya picked it up. I don't know how to forgive him yet, she said. Your father? She nodded. Adrian stood behind her, close but not touching. You don't have to rush. Do you forgive yourself? No. She turned. Do you want to? His gaze moved over her face. I didn't before. And now? He was quiet for a long time. Now I want to become someone you don't have to survive. That undid her more than any confession. Maya stepped toward him. This time, she was the one who lifted her hand to his face. Adrian went completely still, the most feared man in Boston, motionless beneath the touch of an elementary school teacher. You don't get to decide what I can survive, she whispered. His eyes lowered. No, but you can decide what you become. His hand rose to cover hers against his cheek. Slowly. Carefully. As if every movement was a promise he was terrified to break. Maya, he said. And her name sounded like surrender. She kissed him then. Not because everything was healed. Not because the story was clean. Because it was not. Because she had seen him in violence and restraint, darkness and devotion, guilt and sacrifice. Because he had seen her terrified and furious, grieving and brave, broken and still standing. The kiss was quiet at first. A question. Then his arm came around her waist, pulling her closer with a restraint that trembled at the edges. He kissed her like a man who had watched the world from outside windows for too long and had finally been invited into the light. When they parted, his forehead rested against hers. Outside, snow fell over Boston. No gunfire. No sirens. No blackmail calls. Only the soft hush of winter and the slow sound of 2 people breathing. Maya opened her eyes. Adrian? Yes. If you sit outside my window again, I'm throwing something at your car. His mouth finally curved. A real smile. Small, rare, and devastatingly human. Noted. She smiled back, but her eyes filled with emotion. He noticed, of course. He always noticed. What is it? Maya looked past him to the window, where the city reflected in the glass. For months, that view had meant fear. A black SUV. A man in the dark. A mystery, waiting to break her life open. Now the window showed something else. A woman who had lost the last clean version of her past and survived. A man who had spent years believing protection was the only language he deserved to speak. And between them, Something dangerous, imperfect, earned. Nothing, she whispered. I just realized I'm not scared of the window anymore. Adrian's expression changed. Slowly, he reached into his coat and removed something small. Okay. Not to his penthouse, not to a cage, not to a place he controlled. To the harbor house, he said. Maya stared at it. My mother's house? He nodded. I bought it years ago before Calder could burn what was left. I never went inside after that night. I couldn't. Maya's breath caught. Adrian placed the key gently in her hand. It belongs to you. She looked down at it, tears blurring her vision. Then she closed her fingers around the key and held his gaze. No, she said softly. We'll go together. Adrian looked at her as if something inside him had finally stopped running. Outside, beneath the falling snow, one black SUV waited on the street. But this time, it was not a threat. It was not a secret. It was not a man watching from the dark because he did not know how to come closer. This time, Adrian Vale stood inside the apartment, beside the woman he had once protected from fire, from bullets, from lies, and finally from the loneliness they both understood too well. And as Maya turned off the lights, the city beyond the window faded into soft silver darkness. For the first time in years, no one was watching her from outside, because the man who had guarded her from the shadows had finally come home.